Hello there, it's Obi-Wan Kenobi, and page turners they were not, but this is the podcast you're looking for.
Hello everyone, my name is Brennan Marr. That noise you're hearing is my ventilator, and welcome to Andor Afterthoughts, presented by Page Turners They Were Not, my Star Wars podcast. Yes, folks, a few weeks ago, Andor ended. And what a ride it has been. Because the series is very dense, I'm not going to be able to discuss it all in one sitting. So, in the next few weeks, I will be having some guests on the show, and we will be discussing it more in depth. Before we begin, just an important little bit is that the situation in LA right now is actually rather calm and peaceful. I have several friends who live down there, friends and fellow podcasters, and they have informed me that life goes on as usual. It's quiet, civil, and calm in most of the city. And in the areas where there are protests, they are, for the most part, peaceful and calm and within the rights of citizens to protest. But in the event that you think that LA is turned into a war zone full of violence and mayhem, those that I know who live down there say that that is not the case. Now, why do I mention that when talking about Andor? Well, Andor has some great commentary on the real world. And protest is part of that. So going back to Andor, there's just a few thoughts. There is so much to talk about. So let me just share a few thoughts. One of the most interesting characters in Andor is Luthen Rael, played by Stellan Skarsgård. And Luthen is a fascinating character that I think is going to be debated for years to come because of the morality of Luthen. Luthen was very good at organizing the early rebellion. At the same time, its methods, in my opinion, were wrong. The point of the character, I think, is that there is no easy answer. In my opinion, his methods were wrong. He and Saw Gerrera are very much alike in that they are both paranoid and are willing to do a lot of things that are wrong in the name of the rebellion. So for me, Cassian, as we know, becomes very devoted to Luthen's ideas. And in Rogue One, we see him kill people or be suspicious the way that Luthen would be. I think that Cassian Andor's relationship with Jyn Erso in Rogue One is all about him learning the lesson that Luthen's way is not the way. I don't believe that Luthen would have ever believed in the message that Bodhi brought. I think that Luthen, like Saw Gerrera, would not have believed Galen Erso's message. Also, I don't think that Luthen would have believed Jyn when she showed up and said, I saw the message. I know how to destroy the Death Star. I don't think Luthen would have trusted that. And for all we know, he might have tried to kill Jyn Erso to keep everything silent. So I think that Cassian's journey is is abandoning Luthen's way of doing things in favor of a more moral way of doing things. I think that when he tells Jyn Erso rebellions are built on hope, I'm not sure if he entirely believes it. Now, I'm glad in Andor Season 2 that it wasn't Luthen that told him that. I liked that it was the bell at the hotel. When Cassian tells Jyn that, later, when Jyn is trying to persuade the rebel council to try to stop the Death Star, or even convince them that a Death Star exists, she says rebellions are built on hope. I think that's the moment when Cassian goes, you know what? I've been wrong. Because if you recall, after Jyn and Cassian escape from Edu, they get into an argument, with Cassian being his usual grunty self. And so you think that, well, that might be the end of their relationship. Well, later, I think when she tells the council, rebellions are built on hope, that might be the moment where Cassian realizes he was wrong. And then he decides to enlist with her and say, forget what the council says. We're going to go do this. And I'm with you, Jen. And it's a good thing that they did, because then they recover the Death Star plans. And because of what Galen Erso said, now they know how to destroy it. And I think that a lot of it is because Cassian decided to put aside what Luthen had taught him and take a leap of hope and faith. I think Luthen had lost hope and faith. To Luthen, everything was dark and cynical and nihilistic. And I think the lesson for all of us is, in order to resist, we cannot afford to be like Luthen. We need to have hope and optimism. Luthen, I think, had gotten into a very dark place. He even says so. But for him, I think it was all nihilism. He had no faith. At least that's my interpretation. And Cassian has to learn, because of Jin, to do things a different way. And that is why I think Andor and Rogue One fit together so brilliantly that it completely adds more layers to our look at these characters. Look at these ideas. Now, let's be clear here. When they announced they were making an Andor series, I think a lot of us were like, okay, whatever. I don't think it was at the top of a lot of people's lists. But now that we have it, wouldn't have it any other way. It's hard to believe that this series, based on a secondary character in a prequel, has now become some of the best Star Wars that there ever has been. It's truly extraordinary. And this show features some of the best storytelling, particularly as far as our characters are concerned, that we have ever seen in Star Wars. I don't want to say best writing because good writing and bad writing get thrown around very casually. So it's hard to say what is good writing and what isn't good writing. As far as storytelling, the evolution of these characters is extraordinary and some of the best I've seen, not just in Star Wars, but in general. So, in the coming weeks, we will talk about this series, the characters, the storylines in more detail. But suffice to say, as an entire series, this has been so well done that we should commend everybody, both on screen and behind the screen, who's worked on this. It's sad that it's ended, but happy because we will always have this chapter of the Star Wars saga. So those are a few brief thoughts. Thank you so very much for listening. My name is Brennan Marr, that knows you're hearing my ventilator. And in the words of Martha Andor, fight the Empire.